The first time people called Ethan Cole a hero, he was standing in the middle of a burning apartment hallway holding a little girl in his arms. Smoke swallowed the ceiling. Sirens screamed outside. Neighbours cried and pointed from the street below. And Ethan, the man everyone was praising, had started the fire himself. By the next morning, his face was everywhere. Local man risks life to save child. Courage in the face of disaster. People in the neighbourhood brought him food. Old women hugged him. Reporters asked him how he found the strength. Ethan only lowered his eyes and said softly, anyone would have done the same. But that was a lie. Because 3 hours before the fire, Ethan had been sitting in a stolen car behind the building, staring at a revolver in his lap and wondering how his life had fallen apart so completely. Ethan hadn't always been a criminal. At 17, he was the kind of boy teachers believed in. Quiet, sharp, protective of his younger sister Lily. But life has a way of punishing people unevenly. Their father drank away every paycheck. Their mother worked herself sick in a diner until one winter night she collapsed in the kitchen and never woke up again. After that, the apartment became colder.
Not physically, emotionally. His father disappeared for days at a time. Bills stacked up. Lily stopped asking for things because she already knew the answer would be no. Ethan was 19 when he committed his first crime. It was small, a stolen wallet from a drunk man outside a train station. He remembered how badly his hands shook afterward. He remembered buying Lily medicine with the money. He remembered convincing himself it wasn't really stealing if it kept someone alive. That was the beginning. The second crime felt easier. The third barely bothered him. Years passed. Soon Ethan was working with men far worse than him. Men who carried knives casually. Men who laughed during beatings. Men who treated fear like currency. Ethan told himself he was different from them. But criminals always believe there's a line they'll never cross. Until they cross it. One rainy night, Ethan and his crew robbed a jewellery store downtown. It should have been simple. In and out in 4 minutes. But the owner reached under the counter for a shotgun. Panic exploded. One of Ethan's partners fired first. The sound shattered everything. The owner fell instantly. Blood spread across the white floor tiles while alarms screamed overhead.
Ethan stood frozen. He had seen violence before, but death in front of him felt different, permanent, heavy. The crew escaped, but Ethan couldn't sleep afterward. For days he saw the jeweller's wife arriving at the crime scene, saw her collapse beside the police tape, saw her screaming into the rain. That image haunted him. It haunted him so badly that he started drinking just to silence it. But guilt doesn't disappear. It waits. A month later, the police closed in on the crew. One member got arrested. Another vanished. Rumours spread that someone was talking. Their leader, Marcus Kane, became paranoid. Marcus was the kind of man who smiled while threatening you. Cold eyes, perfect suits, no conscience. One night, Marcus called Ethan into an abandoned warehouse. "You loyal to me?" Marcus asked calmly. Ethan nodded. Marcus stepped closer. "If anybody talks," he whispered, "their family dies first." That sentence broke something inside Ethan, because Lily was all he had left. The fire happened 2 weeks later. Marcus ordered Ethan to burn down an apartment building
building owned by a man refusing to pay protection money. Empty building, Marcus promised. Just scare him. Ethan didn't want to do it, but fear controlled him more than morality did. So, after midnight, he poured gasoline through the basement corridors and lit the match. At first, everything seemed quiet. Then, he heard coughing. A child coughing. Ethan froze. A woman suddenly screamed from the third floor. Lights turned on. Doors slammed open. Panic erupted. Marcus had lied. People were inside. For one terrible second, Ethan considered running. And maybe if he had run immediately, nobody would have known.
But then he heard the child cry again. Something inside him cracked open. He charged back into the building. Smoke burned his lungs instantly. Heat clawed at his skin. He found a little girl trapped beneath fallen wood in a hallway while flames climbed the walls around her. She couldn't have been older than 6. When she saw him, she reached for him without hesitation, without knowing he was the reason she was dying. That destroyed him more than the fire itself. Ethan carried her downstairs through choking smoke. Then he went back again and again. He saved an elderly man, a pregnant woman, 2 brothers trapped near the stairwell. By the time firefighters dragged him outside unconscious, half the neighborhood believed they had witnessed a miracle. The newspapers loved him. A criminal with soot-covered skin and sad eyes made for a perfect story. People called him brave, selfless, inspiring. Donations poured in for him after reporters learned he had burns on his arms. One television host called him the soul this city needed. Ethan watched all of it from a hospital bed, feeling sick, because every cheer sounded like accusation. Then came Maya. Maya Bennett was a journalist. Unlike everyone else, she didn't look at Ethan with admiration. She looked at him carefully, like she was listening for something hidden between his words. During an interview, she asked, "When you entered the building, were you afraid?" Ethan answered quietly, "Yes." "But you still went back inside multiple times?" He stared at the floor. "I couldn't leave them." That part, at least, was true. Maya studied him for a moment longer than necessary, and from that moment, she started investigating. Weeks passed. Ethan became famous. Children waved at him on the street. Restaurants refused to let him pay. A local school invited him to give a speech about courage. Every second of it tortured him. At night, he dreamed about flames, about the jeweler bleeding on the floor, about the little girl holding on to him while unknowingly trusting the man who nearly killed her. The guilt became unbearable. But Marcus loved the attention. "You're useful now," Marcus said one evening with a grin. "Cops don't suspect heroes." Ethan realized then that Marcus planned to use his new reputation as protection for future crimes. And suddenly Ethan understood something horrifying. His fake heroism was becoming more dangerous than his criminal past. Meanwhile, Maya kept digging. She discovered the apartment owner had received threats before the fire. She learned Marcus Kane's name from anonymous sources. Eventually, she found security footage showing Ethan's stolen car near the building before the blaze started. One night, she confronted him privately. "No cameras," she said. Rain tapped softly against her car windows while Ethan sat silently beside her. "You started that fire, didn't you?" Ethan felt his chest collapse inward.
For a long time he said nothing. Then finally, yes. Maya closed her eyes slowly. I knew it. You should go to the police, Ethan whispered. Why did you save them? He swallowed hard. Because I heard a child crying. That answer shattered the anger in her face. Not because it excused him, it didn't, but because she realized she was looking at a man drowning in regret. For the first time in years, Ethan told someone everything. The robberies, the murder, Marcus, the threats, the fear, the shame. By the end of the confession, he was crying so hard he could barely breathe.
I don't want to be this person anymore, he said. Maya looked at him quietly. Then she asked the question he feared most. Are you willing to pay for what you've done? Not escape. Not hide. Pay. Ethan didn't answer immediately. Because deep down, every criminal wants redemption without consequence. But real redemption costs something. Finally, he nodded. Yes. The next weeks became a nightmare. Ethan secretly helped investigators build a case against Marcus's organization. Wire recordings, locations, money routes, names. Every day he feared being discovered. And eventually, Marcus did discover it. Ethan returned home one evening to find Lily tied to a chair. Marcus stood behind her, smiling faintly. I trusted you, Marcus said. Lily's face was wet with tears. Marcus pulled out a gun, calmly.
You wanted to become a hero, he asked. Heroes sacrifice. What followed felt endless. A struggle, shouting, gunfire. When police finally stormed the apartment minutes later, Marcus was dead. And Lily, the only innocent person Ethan truly loved, was bleeding in Ethan's arms. She survived. Barely. But while sitting beside her hospital bed that night, Ethan finally understood the full weight of everything he had done. Crime had not only destroyed strangers, it had poisoned every life connected to his own. The confession aired nationally 2 months later. The city was stunned. Their hero was the man responsible for the tragedy. Some people called him a monster. Others called him complicated. Victims hated him. Supporters defended him. Television debates exploded for weeks. Ethan accepted every charge against him. No excuses, no performance.
No self-pity. During sentencing, the judge asked if he had anything to say. Ethan stood slowly. There are people alive because I went back into that fire, he said quietly. But the truth is, they were in danger because of me in the first place. People kept calling me a hero. I'm not. A real hero wouldn't have created the disaster. The courtroom remained silent. Then he continued. But that little girl trusted me anyway. And ever since that night, I've been trying to become the man she thought I was. Even some officers lowered their eyes after hearing that. Ethan was sentenced to many years in prison. And strangely, for the first time in his adult life, he stopped running. He studied, worked in rehabilitation programs,
spoke to troubled teenagers about crime and guilt, refused interviews, refused fame. Years later, the little girl he rescued visited him. She was older then, tall, confident. Ethan could barely look at her. But she smiled softly and said, "My mum told me the truth." He nodded slowly. "You should hate me." "I did," she admitted. Then I realized something. Ethan looked up. "You became the person everyone thought you were after the fire." For the first time in years, Ethan cried again. Not because he was forgiven, but because redemption, real redemption, isn't about erasing the past. It's about carrying its weight honestly for the rest of your life.